Today I got on the show Dr. David Cunic. He's a licensed physical therapist, business consultant, certified leadership coach, cannabis industry expert. You name it, he's done it. He's been an entrepreneur for over a decade, has a lot of stories to tell us I'm very excited about. And he currently runs UCS. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nick, man. I'm really stoked to be here. It's been a long journey between us.
So that's right.
I'm very, very stoked to be here tonight, and I was so happy when you're like, we gotta get you on the calendar. And I'm like, yes, we're gonna make this happen no matter what.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's been almost 15 years we've known each other, I think, right? So
yes, about 15 years, and that's kind of where, with the drink that I brought today for us, I was thinking about our history together.
Yeah, good. I like that. So good transfer to the conversation. So tell us a little bit about that. What you got?
So because it's a little cool outside, and we both like single malt scotches.
Definitely Scotch weather.
Yes, definitely Scotch weather. And also, too, one of my investors for the last several years always said, Scotch is a thinking drink.
Interesting.
Because, you might pound your rum or vodka, but when you're having a Scotch, you appreciate it.
You do.
And it makes you think. So, I was looking at different bottles of Scotch, and I'm like, okay, we've known each other for about 15 years. So what do we got for 15-year bottles? And the selection was so-so. And I went to my guy that I usually go to, and he showed me this 21-year-old bottle. And I'm like, okay, 21 years, which is, we're getting up there now. But the price point was dead on. I actually got from my brother-in-law a month ago who loved it. And I'm like, you know what? Do you guys have an extra bottle of the same? He goes, we have one last left in the store. I go, can you hold it for me for a week and I'll come pick it up? So I'm bringing it for here.
You didn't want it in your house for a week.
I didn't. No, I literally wanted them to hold it because I'm like, great, I'm going to go to the store, pick it up, and then come right here so we can open it together. So
awesome. Well, I'll let you do the honors. I appreciate you bringing it.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I thought it was a good occasion, and from one entrepreneur to another, to see how much you've grown just yourself is just awesome. I mean, you are a huge success story on what you're doing and where your company is now, and I think this is awesome.
Thank you. What's the name of it?
So this is a Lismore.
Yep.
So from the Highlands of Scotland.
Yep.
So aged 21 years.
Single malt.
Single malt.
Love it.
Drink it up. Enjoy.
Very excited about this.
And just so you know, whatever's left in this bottle is for you.
Appreciate that.
So
best part about the show. Salute.
Salute.
So, the thing about Scotch is like the older, it's amazing how much better it gets. And I find that I don't have the taste for red wine to really tell the difference unless you really jump in prices. But with Scotch, I feel like every couple of years that it gets older, I mean, it gets smoother. The taste is just, much more refined. I don't know if you find the same thing.
110%.
Yeah.
And I'll take it a step further is that if you don't mind, I'll tell you a quick story about my father and myself. So my father and I will go to the Whiskey Guild Association where they have like the Scotch tastings. So my father is an old school guy from Worcester, Massachusetts, still says "Park the car" at Harvard Yard, has a long typical pause between words, and he says, I'm bald, fat, and ugly. So he's on a cruise line, and he's having a drink, and he doesn't put ice or anything on it. He gets a chilled martini glass, and then gets the Scotch poured into it. So it doesn't get watered down at all.
Right.
And that's how they'll drink it over in Europe as well, too.
In a martini glass.
In a martini glass, in a chilled martini glass. So just it won't water it down. My dad's sitting there leaning over the edge, being like, taking up some room because he is rather large. I'll leave it at that. And my dad's like, "Oh, sir, I've already had my drink. Come get it." He looks and he goes, "Man," he goes, "What are you drinking?" He goes, I'm drinking a single malt, just a chill martini glass. I want to water it down. Guy has a thick accent. And he's like, "Oh, that's really interesting." They strike up a conversation. 2 days go by. They see each other again at the bar on the cruise line. My dad's sitting there. He's like, "I have a drink. Hey, why don't you come over? You have a drink too." He goes, "Oh, you really like your Scotch?" And my dad's like, "Yeah, why?" He goes, "Well, do you know who I am?" My dad's like, "I have no clue who the hell you are." He's like, "Well, I actually am one of the people that runs the Whiskey Guild Association in America." He's like, "I'll get you a free pass." My dad's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yes." He goes, "Have this card." He goes, "When you go to a Scotch tasting, make sure you present your card to certain distributors because they'll bring a special bottle just for you."
Really?
And I also thought it was bullshit. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse at all.
You can curse.
So literally, we're at a Whiskey Guild Association tasting, and we're at Lefroy, the Lefroy tasting, And my dad's sitting here like this, twiddling his thumbs, waiting. The guy's doing his whole song and dance. We're trying some stuff. And I goes, sir, I was told I should give this to you. The guy goes, crap. I give out one of you guys once a quarter. Hold on. Takes out this thick book. Yep, Jack Cunic. Yep, ID matches. You're in it. Hold on, I got a bottle for you. Takes out this bottle, aged 35 years.
Wow.
35 years. Takes a small little sip, pours a little bit, goes to him, goes, sir, this is for you. I'm like, Dad, give me some. He goes, no, it's only for you, sir. If you even give a sip to your son, that's it. I'm taking your membership.
Wow.
And then we go to another one. Yeah. We go to Glen Marigi. Same exact thing. Oh, we have a bottle of 25 year. I'm like, Dad, what the hell? All because you just let some random guy just get into the bar on a cruise line show.
It's crazy who you meet in different places, right?
And also it's a little common courtesy.
Yeah.
Just, like, hey, just be a nice guy.
Yeah. I'll tell my first Scotch story was when I was like 23, 24 years old. Of course, like when you're young. And of course, even like, not to age myself too much, but 15, 20 years ago, Scotch wasn't that big. Like now Scotch and whiskey and bourbon, anything brown is getting really big and very popular over the last 5 years. But I went in Bloomfield to what used to be an old speakeasy. It was like an old Cape Cod house, and it had a screen door. And I met my cousin there, and he's like, meet me here, and he gave me the address, and I thought I was showing up at someone's fucking house. I was like, where am I, Bernie? And he's like, don't worry, it's a good place. And we open the door, there's like 10 tables, it's an open, floor plan, it's like only like 1,000 square feet, there's like 10 tables, and everyone's having good Italian food and drinking. And I'm like, this is badass. And I sit down, and they asked my cousin what he's having, and he ordered a Scotch. And I was like, I'll have one too. Yeah. And that was my first Scotch, and I'll never forget how strong it was the first time I drank it. That first sip, I was like, it definitely is a little bit of an acquired taste, but the buzz was excellent. So it got me hooked almost instantly. But it was like kind of the environment that I experienced it in the first time. I was like, cool, this is like real, like just awesome.
Well, your wife might get mad at me after I make this next comment. So one of my best friends, and his son's my godson, built a speakeasy in the basement of his house. And it's literally a bookcase, and you have to pull, and I won't say what the item is, but it's glued to the bookcase. You have to pull the bookcase. The whole thing opens up. The minute it opens up, the lights turn on, and music turns on.
I need that in my life.
And he keeps all his scotches down there. Each time he entertains guests, it's down there, and it's so cool. I mean, my godson's 5 now, and he still hasn't figured it out yet. Yeah. Which is really cool, but it's just a cool little environment.
Oh, for sure.
And stuff like that. And hopefully here in Morristown one day, I just have... Circling back to my company, UCS Advisors, we just opened up another satellite office in Portland, Maine. Okay. And in Portland, Maine, they have a secret underground drinking society.
Is that right?
Where for like $500 a year, they'll go and do these pop-up speakeasies. And you and one guest can go try whatever the drink is for the night. Right. So I mean that's kind of neat. Awesome, and I joked around with a few of the bar owners around here in town.
It'd be cool if we had.
And I'm like it'd be kind of cool if we have like a private it's a site, it's a club. Why can't we do that? Yep.
So I thought another type of place that would work real well around here, and they try to attempt it, but it's like a real beer garden, kind of like modeling like after like Germany, like Oktoberfest, like fucking picnic tables, right? Like, and just lots of beer. And like also like a stage and like where they, make you drink more, make people dance and that type of stuff. I don't, have you ever been over to Germany for like Oktoberfest or anything like that?
So it's ironic, when I took my company public, my first cannabis company public, we were also on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. I have a lot of investors in Germany, so I've been to Germany numerous times. Gotcha. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And then you have that bar that's not like a barn here in Morristown, right by Tajmu.
Right.
And I went and checked that out, and what's interesting, they were saying how they're trying to get more of that outdoor vibe, because they have picnic tables outside, this and that, but I'm like, you have no music. Right. You're right next to the street. Right. So, and I will say the beer garden down in Asbury Park. I don't know if you've been to that one.
I've never been there.
There's a German beer garden in Asbury Park, and it's upstairs. So downstairs is all inside. You go like up 2 flights of stairs, huge roof deck. Yep. Amazing beer garden. Cool. So
I did one in Las Vegas, which was everything in Las Vegas is big, and it was pretty good. It was not like the
which one in Vegas?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. But it's
because my second cannabis testing lab was in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's right.
And what's interesting is that we were located in Las Vegas proper, so we had to go through the Alcohol and Gaming Commission for all our licenses and our ID badges.
Wow.
So if everything went to shit, at least I could go deal blackjack for a living.
Right, of course, yeah.
But the Hopper House there, which is all around the world, the Hopper House there became a staple, especially when my investors from Germany would come over to Vegas to check on their investments. And we would take them there, and they're like, "Really? You're taking us to a Hopper House?" And I'm like, "Where else do you want to get German food right now?" And they're like, "No, this is fine. You can drink. Yeah. No, that's fine."
Although it might be like taking like someone from Italy to like the Olive Garden. I'm not sure. True.
And I will say, we're talking about beer gardens. I went to a Hopper House in Zurich, Switzerland, and my very first time to Zurich, I was meeting the founder who took K2 skis here to America.
Wow.
His name's Per Heblon, and the guy sets up a rack like this, eats like this, proper, orders like a $700 bottle of wine with lunch. You only have one glass, that's it. That's all like the proper code. And I'm with my business partner at the time and the investor, and I see the Hopper House flag hanging outside this building, and I'm like, "Guys, let's go grab a beer!" And the guy's like, "You want to go there?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "It's an old military base. You actually have tanks in there, old machine guns, and people are just around just dancing, drinking beer." I'm like, "Okay, machine guns, old tanks."
Sounds amazing.
And I'm like, "Beer?" I'm like, "Why not?" I'm like, and what's interesting, our investor who knows Zurich really well had never been there in 8 years, and he loved it. Yeah. Like so much so we had to actually cut him off.
That's funny. That's awesome. So, I love that. I always love when you get someone that's usually a little proper and they have a little bit too much fun. It's always good to see that side of them. So tell us a little bit about UCS.
So the full name is UCS Advisors and Investor Relations. Everyone always says, "Dr. David, what does UCS stand for?" And it's really a two-part answer. Part one is, if we're talking about nothing about cannabis, it means use common sense. Because the one thing is in business, and myself, I've started 13 companies in 17 years.
Right.
I've successfully sold 7 of them.
Right.
I took one of them public. We were one of the first 1,500 publicly traded cannabis companies in America.
Right.
I've done some shit.
Right.
Some good stuff, some bad stuff at the end of the day.
Right.
But UCS Advisors, the reason why we say use common sense is that a lot of business owners or just young entrepreneurs, not in terms of age, but in terms of experience, they get too caught up in the minutia and they forget to use just some general common sense.
I like that. Yeah.
And it's like, hey, don't overthink the problem.
Right.
Sometimes you just got to, rip the Band-Aid off.
Yep.
And then in terms of cannabis, it stands for use cannabis safely. A lot of people don't realize is that there's a proper way to use cannabis. It's a medicine. Whether you like it or not, it's a medicine. It's going to be used as a medicine. And myself as a medical practitioner, it's part of our duty and part of our code of ethics is to educate and to empower people with information and knowledge. So that's why it's use cannabis safely.
I like that though. So I have nothing as elegant as that, but I always talk to people when if the conversation comes up that they get paranoid when they get high or they're just not good when they get high. And I'm like, well, how much do you smoke? Or tell me about when, because they usually tell a story. When after that is usually a story. Last time I got high, I did X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, what did you smoke? Well, I smoked a half a joint. It's like, well, would you chug a half a bottle of vodka? Especially if you don't drink? No, you wouldn't. Maybe you just start with one, puff and see, take one hit, see how that makes you feel, And,
exactly.
And talk about safe, talk about like enjoying it. I mean, we could also talk about the medical use of it as well, the pain relief and everything else that it benefits. But I just find that people get really caught up with how it makes them feel awkward, but the usage and the dosage that they're putting themselves through.
Or just a lack of information, a lack of knowledge. So I used to own several testing labs. We didn't grow it, we didn't sell it. We're like the FDA of cannabis. Right. Okay? And I tell people, okay, you hear about these high school parties where they all take pills from their parents' house, throw it in a jar and just take random pills. And I go, great, so you're going to smoke some random weed that you don't know where it's from, where it's from, what's on it. And
that's a good point, though.
I mean, and still to this day, people say, what's the most disgusting thing you've ever seen on cannabis? I'm like, well, we actually found human feces on cannabis that we were testing that someone wanted to sell to an end user.
I don't know if it's weird that you were testing for human feces, but
well, exactly. But even another step further, I joke around with people. I'm like, some of the pesticides we find on this or the mold. Yeah. And people are like, well, how bad's the mold? I go, let me put it this way. I go, take a half-eaten orange, throw it in the dumpster outside, go back 2 weeks later, and go eat that same orange. Right. Would you do it? They're like, hell no. I go, but you'll smoke it.
Right.
It makes no logical sense.
Or the pesticides, I think, is a great point.
Huge. It's I mean, we talk about pesticides, when people talk about vaporizers, people joke around, like there's an old joke in the industry where if you were to inhale a vaporized cart and you exhale through your nose, if your sinuses clog up immediately, there's pesticides in it. Throw it out. You know, it's going to do you more harm than good.
Interesting.
So,
I know that.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Just all the different aspects are like, people forget cannabis dehydrates you.
Right.
That's why I ask people like, oh, well, last time I smoked a joint, so fucked up. I go, great. Do you have any alcohol? Yeah. How'd you know that? Well, alcohol dehydrates you and cannabis dehydrates you. What do you think's going to happen?
Right.
You know,
and it's exponential together for sure.
Oh, exactly. And you know, there's one doctor who says all the time, hydrate before you medicate.
Right.
And before you even touch the stuff, have at least 2 pints of water. A half hour ahead of time, because cannabis is going to dehydrate you.
Yep. Yeah, nothing worse than cotton mouth, right?
Oh no, tell me about it.
So tell me about some of the other businesses that you've ran.
So in New Jersey, my big claim to fame was I used to own DMC Athletics Rehab.
I remember.
And as a marketing person, you might say, well, your UCS logo is just like your DMC logo, which was done on purpose.
Of course, yeah.
So I actually started my first company in 2004.
Right.
Actually in Bernardsville, New Jersey.
Yep.
And I did everything the wrong way with a business partner. I met the guy one time.
Right.
We had a 2-hour lunch. And I was writing him a check for X thousands of dollars to become partners.
Right.
Not the way to do business. Right. Let's just say that didn't work out very well.
Right.
From there, I actually met my business partner and also business mentor. He was about 13 years my senior. Actually at that facility in Bernardsville. And kind of as a joke, he said, I should invest in you. And I said, it's funny, I'm actually shopping for a bank loan.
Right.
And he was great. And I'll never forget, we went out to, Trap Rock in Central Jersey, which is like a brewery. And we had water. Just water for 2 hours.
That's funny.
And I know the guy drinks. So I'm thinking like, we're at least one beer, right? Nope. We're drinking water for 2 hours. And he said point blank, do you want me to invest in you or do you want to be your business partner? And I said, listen, if you invest in me, I can get to here. But if you're my business partner, I can get to here.
Right.
I need help. I need guys. I mean, I was a 24-year-old punk ass kid. I mean, granted, I already had a doctorate degree and I was already making good money, but it was time to take that next step.
Right.
So I originally started a bunch of physical therapy and personal training centers here in Morris County, New Jersey. I did 6 expansions in 3.5 years. My first clinic was a whopping 140 square feet. By the time I was done, my smallest clinic was 3,500 square feet.
Nice.
And then from there, just started more companies, started personal training companies, started a Pilates studio, started randomly a newsletter company, which I sold within 9 months.
Right.
I became a contractor for a merchant services company. Not that I know anything about credit processing, but it was too good of an offer. Took over the entire East Coast, and we sold that in 6 months, and we doubled our money.
That's awesome.
You know, sometimes it's the opportunity was there.
Right.
And then we had an opportunity to cover health and wellness for people and for their pets. Because about 70% of Americans have a dog or a cat. And back then, the average American spent about $8,500 a year on their dog or cat. Oh, I mean, if you really think about your animals and what you spend.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we were producing 100 articles every day on health and wellness. And that also included the use of medical cannabis.
Right.
Before it was cool to be in cannabis.
Right.
And it also covered using CBD for dogs.
Right.
When before it was cool to be into CBD.
Right.
And then from
Before
there,
anyone even knew what CBD meant.
Exactly. And then from there, things just kind of escalated. I took my company public, and I'm sure we'll go over different struggle stories and this and that. And everything I wanted to achieve as a physical therapist, I originally had my timeline. I wanted to achieve by the time I was 35. Mm-hmm. I achieved everything by the time I was 32.
Right.
Everything I wanted to achieve it as a physical therapist since I was 16 years old.
Right.
You know, go get my bachelor's, master's, got my doctorate, start a clinic, expand my clinic, eventually sell it. I did that by the time I was 32.
Right.
People spend 30, 40 years to achieve their career dream, and here I am, 32.
Right. So
and it's like, next? What's next?
Right.
And that's being the CEO of a publicly traded company, which was an amazing experience, very trying.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I will say after I resigned from that position, I lost almost 50 pounds immediately within a few months. People said, "What'd you do?" I'm like, less stress.
Right.
But you know, I got involved in cannabis technically back in 2009, 2010.
Right.
So it's been over a decade now. Yeah. And UCS Advisors was made out of need and demand. Long story short was when I took my company public, I had 63 private investors to raise about $14 million.
Wow.
That's a lot of investors.
Yeah.
about 55 of them pretty much said to me point blank, your board of directors are kind of screwing you over. If you go on your own, we'll follow you in a heartbeat. Okay. And when you hear that type of, wow, really? Yeah. And then in cannabis and hemp, the unofficial stat through several publications in the industry is about 65% of business owners in cannabis or hemp are first-time ever business owners.
Wow.
That's scary.
That is.
And people say, oh, it's because it's a new industry. I'm like, no. I'm like, you can be a business owner in a different industry and transfer to this, but I'm like, and from there, people don't know how to raise money. Right. They don't know how to raise capital. They don't know how to talk to investors. Right. They don't know how to do their pitch deck. So that kind of came out of Need and Demand, where we teach courses. Yeah. We teach people about that. And then on the flip side, you know, technically speaking, you and I are average middle-class Americans. Right. And, you know, as an average middle-class American here in America, and you want to do something in the private sector, where do you go to? Right. Not too many options. You go to a financial advisor, they'll say, great, go do mutual funds or stocks. Right. But what do you do? Where do you go? And then when it comes to cannabis, where it really clicked for us was back in about 2017. I was teaching a seminar in Boston. Okay. And about 6 or 7 people after the seminar said, listen, I spend over $15,000 traveling the country trying to figure out where to invest my money in this industry. Holy cow. I learned more from you in the last 2 hours than I did in my last 15 grand.
Right. I mean, it's a pretty secretive industry. Yeah. You know, it's not like very easy to find out what the hell is going on. And a lot of people don't want, you know, if you're on the inside, you don't want more people knowing. Because you know what the gold mine is and what's about to happen and what is happening already, right? So yeah, it's very closed off to people that want to get in. So how do you feel people get involved then? Or how do you help get people involved?
So what we do is we really kind of give them a heart to heart. Yeah. I take a medical approach towards business. And people always ask, oh, Dr. David, like, what's your secret sauce? Like, why do you have all these clients and like this or that? And why people keep following you? And a mutual contact of ours said to me about a year ago, he's like, Dr. David, you start 13 companies. I refer people to all 13 companies because you have proper ethics, both personally and business-wise, which says a lot in general. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of people who want to get involved in cannabis, we give them a reality check. Do you want to open up a business in cannabis? If you do, what aspect? Right. Or do you rather really just want to make money from the industry, which is okay, then you're really more so an investor. Right. And if we were to use New Jersey as an example, probably 1 out of every 3 people we talk to in New Jersey and New York who say, I want to do something in cannabis, I want to open up a business. And we start going over the process and the cost and the timeline. Yeah. And they go, oh crap.
It's more than I thought was involved.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is not a part-time job.
Would you think it was going to be easy?
Exactly. Yeah. And then they actually become an investor.
Right. So. Yeah, no, that makes more sense for sure. So stick before, because I actually want to ask you about some of the things going on in New Jersey and also nationally. But before we get there, you know, we do have a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs and that are entrepreneurs listening to this. Tell me about, like, you know, one of your biggest struggles currently, or, you know, in the past that you've had as an entrepreneur, like something that like sticks out as a story that someone maybe could relate to.
So a lot of good learning lessons. Okay. So I'm gonna break this down to a few parts. All right. Let's talk about networking first. Okay. Because if you're an entrepreneur or first-time business owner, you need to learn how to network.
Right, for sure.
Okay, and don't sit here and give me the bullshit because, oh, I'm a really good networker, because that's bullshit. Right. I've been taking networking classes for almost 20 years, and I'm still always learning stuff. Right. Yep. So I always tell people this is that join a networking group, whether it's a BNI, a late tip, or whatever, but join that. Even though it might cut into your day, you will learn something every week. Yep. And, you know,
it's amazing how people connect too. Yes. The more people you know, it's amazing how many people you can connect with from there.
Well, and we'll take a step further. If I look at my physical therapy and personal training clinics, I had about 14 employees all join different BNI groups. Out of those 14 employees, 11 of them now all own their own company. Wow. And when I asked them, what's the biggest thing? They're like, BNI helped us a lot because we actually learned how to network. Right. And it's the best place for us to fail because people aren't going to judge us while we're learning. Yep. So that's the first thing I would recommend. Yep. The second thing I'd recommend is if you're going to find a mentor, which a lot of people now are like, oh, I got to find a mentor, commit to the mentor. Right. Okay. Myself, in the last 5 years, I've started to mentor probably at least 15 to 20 people. There's only 2 people left I'm mentoring. Wow. Because people give up in the first 60 to 90 days. Yep. They're just not committed to it.
Well, it's, you know, I think it's a nice idea. And then as soon as you see how grueling it could be and how many no's and how many disappointed faces and uninterested people you could see, I mean, people will be nice to you and say, go for it as much as as you want. You could hear that a lot. Go for it. No, you could do it. But then it's like when it's time for them to help you get behind it, or you're trying to make a sale, it may just not happen that way,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I would say also too is for a struggle is for the first, for my first 12 companies, I've always had investors or a business partner. This current company, UCS Advisors, I have no business partners. And I have no investors to help me springboard it. Yeah. And so being a solopreneur for me was definitely a struggle the first year.
Yeah.
Like to the point where I'm not saying I was going through depression, but I was like, holy shit. Yeah. Like there's a lot of stuff here that I can't delegate anymore.
Right.
I'm in charge of my own destiny, which I always know, but I got spoiled in my first 12 companies. Like, hey, I need to hire an accountant. Can you give me 10 grand? Or like, hey, I want to hire Kraus Marketing Group. Hey, I go to my investors and here's X, Y, and Z. Why I need them. Sure, no problem. Here's a check. Now it's no. Everything's on you.
Right.
And it's also making sure you outsource things when you can outsource things as well also.
No, that was one of the big things too with me when or over the years, it's like, my wife Michelle has been heavily involved in the business, and times less than more. We have 3 kids, and that's one of the perfect reasons why sometimes she's not. The reason I bring it up though is there's a lot of times when I just wish I had someone else that, like, if I was on my off day or off week or off month, there was someone else that could perform, and that's what a lot of times a partner can do for you. Or if you weren't making that much money, sometimes partners bring different things to the table. Sometimes they bring money to the table, right? Then that's one of the opportunities that they could bring for you, So, I mean, being a solo entrepreneur is has its challenges as well.
Get a little touch up while you're there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. So, but I'd also like to add one more thing too, which is something we've been doing all throughout 2020, and we're still doing now, which is set 5 mini goals for the week. If you're an entrepreneur, people have like, oh my God, these huge plans, they get very quickly get very discouraged. But give yourself 5 mini goals, which are for the most part attainable. Yeah. It's almost like you can get them done, but it's just that constant reminder. So if you're a first-time business owner or a first-time entrepreneur, you're starting to get the entrepreneur bug, set yourself some mini goals every week. And that will really help you out dramatically, okay? And that will really kind of show you where you need to go and help you stay focused.
Yeah, I'd like that. I think momentum is one of the most important parts, right? Because you can get stuck on some stuff. And if you're not ready to make a decision on something else, I'm sure there's plenty of other things that you can make a decision on this week. So 5 mini goals is an excellent thing to focus on. What do you think about staying motivated? How do you stay motivated?
So before we go to motivation, I want to give what we call here at UCS Advisors green nuggets advisory tips. Is this: if you're a first-time business owner or a young entrepreneur, and the bank offers you money or a line of credit, take it.
Right.
Even if you don't need it, take it.
Best time to take it.
Exactly. Yeah. And you and I can both speak from experience, because when you need the money, you can't find the money. Right. When you don't need the money, people offer you the money. And I'm seeing so many people, especially during COVID, who got offered loans from banks, and they're like, well, it's going to cost me 6% interest. Buddy, if you can't afford 6% interest, you shouldn't get the loan in the first place.
Right, agreed.
But if you can get the money, get it.
Yeah, you don't know what tomorrow's going to give you.
Yeah, I mean,
we've been lucky enough that things have been open through this. In 2008, everything was shut off. There was no money left. Yeah. There was no money for anybody.
Look what happened after Hurricane Sandy with us.
Right, exactly, yeah.
The federal rules changed with reimbursement. I mean, Hurricane Irene the year before, I got that huge check from my insurance company. Yep. And then all of a sudden, the rules and regs got changed. Hurricane Sandy comes, I'm still waiting for that check, and I still haven't had it yet. It's been over 10 years.
Yeah, me and Michelle have a story about that, Kraus Marketing, about when we moved to Morristown, it was in 2013. We were $55,000 in debt, and it was all credit cards. Yep. Because that's how we started the company. And we were on year 4 going into year 5, and we had that number, 55,000 was a number that we call it quits. If we can't start making good money by the time we're 55,000 in debt, by the way, which is, in the big scheme of things, if you're starting a business, kind of a small number to have, but no one was consulting me to tell me that may not be enough money.
But the things I'll give you credit, because you and your wife had a discussion like, hey, this is our number.
So
at least you had a clear defined goal.
Yeah. So we went to the banks. No one was giving us money. And then through networking, I got introduced to the SBA. And now the SBA is not the easiest thing. They want to know everything about you, and it usually takes 3 to 6 months to get any money out of them. But they gave us exactly the amount of debt that we already had. They gave us another $55,000. We were able to renovate an office in a nice area downtown. I was able to make a couple of key hires that are still with me today, and everything changed. The only reason I didn't give up, and I'll tell you why, is because we had made $1 million in sales in the 5 years leading up to that. And I said to Michelle, I go, we made $1 million in sales. I never thought I'd make $1 million off of our artwork and off of our creative. We've made that. So we've made $1 million, we can do it again. We just got to figure out how to do it better and quicker. And she agreed, and we went for it. So yeah, me and Michelle had this number, $55,000 in debt, right? So if we got to that number and we still weren't making as good as money as we were making in corporate, then it was time to call it quits, and that would be our exit. We read enough books to know that there was supposed to be an exit strategy, right? If things weren't working out. Well, we decided that we had just made our first $1 million in sales in the lifetime of the company. And I said to Michelle, I go, listen, we sold $1 million. That's something that a lot of people will never do. And it wasn't in 1 year, but it was over the course of about 4.5 years. I said, if we could replicate that in a much quicker timeline, more efficiently, we will be profitable. I go, well, that's what we have to figure out. We both agreed to double down, but the banks wouldn't give us money. But I found through networking, to kind of tie it all together, the SBA would give us money. It wasn't an easy process, but they did. We doubled down. We moved to Morristown. We made a couple of key hires that we couldn't afford if we didn't move to Morristown and couldn't attract the talent. And really, the rest is history. I mean, the company is now almost 30 employees, and sometimes it takes a little bit of risk, but also knowing what you don't know.
Exactly.
Is what's going to get you to the next level.
And it's funny you mentioned about doing the $1 million, and it's something that we teach all our clients. We teach in seminars. So I want you to take this pad of paper and this pen. All right. Sorry, mid-drink.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's really simple, right?
Yep.
Just write down in numbers 10,000.
Just write down 10,000.
Just 10,000 in numbers. That took you a second, right?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Now write in numbers 10 million.
All right.
That way I take you an extra half a second.
Right.
You know the difference between a $10,000 idea and a $10 million idea? About a half a second. That's it.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is that as an entrepreneur, and you're saying you have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this, is that don't sell yourself short. You said yourself point blank, hey,
yes.
I never thought I'd do $1 million in business.
Yes.
Look what we have. We're doubling down, okay? Yeah. And so you had that idea and that vision to know to keep going.
Timing.
Exactly. And the other thing is too, when people sit here and they go, oh, well, maybe this is a good idea, take that extra half a second and think bigger.
Yeah.
Take that next level.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is too, and you're a great example of this in Kraus Marketing, is that you started off local, then you went state, then you went regional, and now you're national.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
And any entrepreneur listening to this podcast right now, when you're starting your idea, ask yourself, where do you want to be? Do you want to be local?
Yeah.
You want to be regional?
Yeah.
You want to be national?
Yeah.
And which way do you want to go?
Yeah.
I'll use myself as an example. I
definitely have to have vision.
Yeah.
You have to look to where you want to go for sure. Yeah.
But give yourself that extra half a second. Because most people write down that $10,000 number and be like, I can't do this. I'm going to fail.
How am I going to make money over time?
Exactly. Write down 10 million. It only takes an extra half a second. Just push yourself for that extra half a second, and you never know what can pop up.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, honestly, just be ready to grind, too. Be ready for how much, struggle it's going to be to get to that next number. So we talked about struggles, but, you asked
about motivation before.
Motivation, I think actually motivation, and I want to understand, tell me about a success story.
So motivation, for me, comes in a lot of different forms. I'm that guy that has little signs everywhere, behind his desk, motivational, this and that. I read them out loud.
Oh, I thought you mean you see signs, so you actually literally have the signs.
I literally have the signs. I literally have the signs, literally cut out. People that will come to my home office, dude,
hang in there.
Exactly. People dude, that looks so ghetto. Would you just photocopy that and cut it out and put tape? I'm like, yeah. They're like, can I pay for you to get a real sign? I'm like, if you want to pay for it, sure, I don't care. Yeah. So what motivates me is the following: is that business is a cruel world,
right?
And a lot of people don't play nice. And the bigger you get, the more and more you realize people just don't play nice at all.
Yeah.
But also as a small business guy who started off that way, the one thing I've always noticed is that, and part of my saying is always be willing to achieve your greatness. And UCS Advisors, we help you achieve your greatness.
Right.
We all have greatness inside of ourselves. And your greatness, my greatness, the people filming this, everyone's greatness might be different, but you have to be willing to achieve it.
Right.
And only you can decide if you are willing to take those steps.
Yeah, agreed.
And for me, that's what motivates me. And also, too, yeah, the financial stuff is nice, don't get me wrong, but it's also about paying it forward. It's about giving other people opportunities. Like, I'll never forget when I was pitching Kraus Marketing to my board of directors, my pubco, when we want to use you.
Right.
And they're like, are you fucking crazy? Like,
right.
No, we want to. I'm like, why not? I'm like, give these guys a chance. If it crashes and burns in 6 months, fine,
right.
Crash and burns, but at least we didn't, we saved some money, X, Y, and Z, but they're hungry. They want to go do stuff. Like, people ask me all the time why I also tend to work with a lot of people who've been in business only for a few years, because they're still hungry.
Right.
If you want to take that risk, really take that chance.
Right.
And it really comes down to paying it forward.
Yeah.
And success stories, there's a whole bunch of them. Like, a great example is, like, we have a little cart over here.
Yeah.
This company I met back in 2014, 2 guys, literally in less than 1,000 square foot warehouse,
right.
facility.
Right.
And they were cannabis growers. Yep. And their goal was to eventually expand their grow,
right.
have multiple grows, and eventually get into the extraction lab business, which is the product that goes into vaporizers.
Right.
And they kept on grinding. They self-funded it. Even when they had the opportunity to get some outside investment money, the deal wasn't right for them. And I was advising them, and I told them point blank, like, guys, don't take the money. You don't need it.
Right.
It might take you another 6 to 9 months to reach your goal, but you're not missing any of that market share right now. You know what? Yeah. Say no. Granted, that's less money I'm making, but it's not about me making money. It's about you helping advice. You out.
Yeah,
and these guys are kicking ass now.
Right.
Now they're on their 4th expansion.
Yeah.
That's
actually great advice, though, because one thing that when you're an early entrepreneur and you got something good, people will want to invest. And you'll be willing, because you just want money, to give up 15 or 20% of your business. Hold on tight, because you might only have to give up 0.5% or even less of your business in the future for the same amount of money, sometimes even a less amount of time, right? So I just see a lot of young people be like, he has 40% of my company for $50,000. I'm like, holy shit, you just gave up $40,000 of your blood, 40% of your blood, sweat, and tears, for that money. That is... And
hearing those stories, the reason why UCS Advisors Investor Relations was formed, where people can hire us literally by the hour to help them with their negotiations.
Right.
And we're notoriously known to think outside the box for deals.
Right.
Where people are like, well, why would you do this? Like, listen, at the end of the day, okay, let's say you want 40%. Okay, listen, if I can pay you back X amount of dollars in X amount of time, your equity now goes down to 20%. If I can pay you a little bit more, it now goes down to 15%.
Well, I like that idea too. Yeah, there's a lot of ways you could structure it.
Exactly. But if you don't know, that's why sometimes one thing we always tell people is free only gets you so far.
Yep.
Your lawyer, if you're not going to pay him, is only going to give you free advice to a degree.
Right.
Your banker, your accountant's only give you free advice to a degree.
Right.
A website designer's only give you advice to a degree.
Of course, yeah.
You eventually need to pay for things.
Yep.
And that's really huge. And another success story, which I'm really proud about, is a lot of my former employees with DMC Athletics and Rehab, and even some of my former employees at Pazoo. Because in 2010, we won the Alfred Sloan Award in America for workplace flexibility. So we were one of the top 10% of small business to work for in America for workplace programs and workplace flexibility. We gave all our employees profit sharing.
Right.
We gave all our employees up the ability to earn up to an extra $2,500 a month in bonuses by set goals. But also we gave unlimited paid vacation time, which blew people's minds. But I'm like, if you like where you work, you're not going to go take that 2 or 3 weeks off, or so forth and so on. Right. Okay. If you can handle your work while you're away, it's not great. You want to take an extra week off? God bless you. I'm not a babysitter.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And to see so many of my former employees now see them have their own businesses, and they still reach out to me and some of my colleagues for advice. That says it all right there.
Right.
To see, to come from nothing, to see them grow and keep grinding it out. Those are huge success stories.
Yeah.
Overall, in general.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely a feel good. It's a success story, and it's also a feel good. And I think as an entrepreneur, one of the other things is you're going to find opportunities where you could do things that you may not believe in, but it will make you money. And even though you didn't believe in it, you'll get that green dollar that you've been looking for forever, right? And I would just urge people to remember why you went into business, because a lot of people, or most people, go into business because they're passionate about the product or service, or they're passionate, which is one of my main reasons, was about their employees, like life, work balance, and also growing people. And because I had bad experiences of that, and I wanted to make sure that people were able to enjoy working for a company, and there's gonna be opportunities along the way just to make an extra buck that go against the original reason that you started the company. And I think that it's important to, just remove, or just remind yourself of why you started it. I'll go also into positivity. Go ahead.
So let me ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important for everyone who's listening to this podcast. Yeah. I have my answer, but I want to hear your answer first. What's the difference, in your opinion, between an entrepreneur and a business owner?
That's interesting. Well, I mean, a business can be purchased, right? So it could always be purchased. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know if I know how to answer. I mean, I would answer in the basic, kind of more of a, dictionary term. It's like you could purchase a business and now you might be a business owner. But entrepreneurs like to create, and they like to set their own path and make their own way, as opposed to a business owner, which a lot of times they understand the numbers and then it's a transaction, more of a transactional deal.
So now let me take it another step further and ask you this question. Carpenters, electricians, plumbers, are they more so entrepreneurs or more so business owners?
Well, a lot of them are definitely entrepreneurs. They're making their own thing. They're very creative on how to make a buck and how to go. And I guess they're both, though.
Okay, right? So interesting you say that. So when we talk to people about starting a company, whether it's in cannabis or anything else, we ask them point blank, are you an entrepreneur or a business owner? Because there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah. And tell me what you mean by that.
And I think everyone here listening should really pay attention to this, is that if you're a business owner, 9 times out of 10, it means that you just don't want to work for someone else. You want to do it your way. And you're very content. And you see a lot of business owners in blue collar fields. That's why I mentioned carpenters, electricians, where, hey, I don't want to work for this other electrician. I want my own thing.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Yep.
And they're content with that. And that's fine. They want this business for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
God bless them. That's a business owner.
Gotcha.
Versus an entrepreneur who's looking for that next opportunity.
Right.
And looking for that next thing, whether it's investing their time, money, knowledge into, where, okay, great, I originally as a physical therapist started as a business owner. All right. And then from there, I realized I wanted more. And so I went from the business owner hat to the entrepreneur hat, where, okay, great, I'm looking for that next opportunity. People are like, you sold it that many companies? I'm like, yeah, well, some of them, I bought the company and then I flipped it in less than a year because there was a great opportunity.
Right.
So, but in reality, that entrepreneur is looking for that next thing, that next step to keep progressing. All right. That can be a subsidiary company or something completely else. While a business owner, usually it just wants to work for themselves.
Yeah.
And you asked about goals.
Yeah.
And something we tell every young business owner / entrepreneur is, what's your end game for this business?
Right.
Is this a 5-year company, a 7-year company? Like, is this something you want to eventually give to your children one day?
Right.
What's your goal? And then once you know what that goal is, you can start working backwards to how to achieve that.
Right.
And most people get so caught up in the very beginning, like, I need the accountant, I need the lawyer, I need the website, I need this. They forget, wait, what's the ultimate goal?
Yep.
And then that will help you decide which way you want to go.
It's one of the best advice I ever got. I was doing really good in corporate. I was climbing the ranks. They were flying me all over the world and like training me hardcore. And I'll never give up what I learned in corporate. But I called. I don't want to bring up 2 cousin stories in one conversation, but it is. So I called a cousin of mine who was very successful, and we're just chatting. I was down in Orlando at a convention, and I said, "Hey man, I'm doing awesome." I go, "But I still got this, branding and website design company on the side," and I just kind of caught up. Like, what do I do? And then I start spewing out numbers. If I do this, I make this much money in the next 3 years. If I do this, I make this much money in the next 3 years. And he goes, "Stop all that." He goes, "What do you want to, what do you want your life to be like?" And I'm like, and it broke my brain, and I couldn't understand it. And I just, thought about it over and over for years. I still think about that question. What do I want it to be like? And then what do I have to do in order to be like that?
Exactly.
Because you get stuck in like the immediate goal, but that's not what you should be thinking about. You should be thinking about the end game and then work backwards. I completely reverse engineer it 100%.
And then if we were to, for everyone listening to this, we talked about goals before and like motivation. if you were to look at my office, I have 3 whiteboards. I have one whiteboard for the goals for the month. That's it, just for the month. Then I have another whiteboard, the goals for the quarter.
Right.
And then I have another whiteboard, the goals for the year.
Yep.
And one thing I tell everyone this, and it's a very, very tough challenge, is that come up with a theme for the year for your business. So for me, I knew some things that I want to transition. 2020 was the Green Diamond Year Part 2. It's a 2-year run. The model for this year is invest in opportunities. People are so worried about COVID and this and that. We have so much opportunity out there. You need to invest in it. Yeah. So I tell business owners, you need to think that year in advance. But remember the bigger goal. So come up with a theme for the year for your business.
Right.
And if you ever get stuck, or you talk about motivation, just remind yourself, what's that theme for the year?
Yeah, agreed. So. Yeah, no, you have to have that goal for the year. So it's funny that you mentioned goals because I'm like a spreadsheet whore. Excel is like my favorite friend, and when I get what keeps me motivated is first self-talk. Like 100%, you got to tell yourself you could do it. And like I'm kind of, and I hate to say it, but I'm more of like a David Goggins type of self-talk where I'm like, just fucking stick in there, you piece of shit. You are gonna fucking get there. Like that is my self-talk. And some people would find that insulting, right? And like, but to me, it's like just stick in there. And like my coaches that always motivated me as an athlete were the ones that were like, come on, Kraus, what are you doing? Like they grab my face mask and they're like, what are you doing? Like that always motivated me. My self-talk is like, come on, fucker, what are you going to do this year? And then I love modeling it. I love to see how it's all going to work out. So here's the thought process and why I'm going to do it. But at the end of the day, it's business and how are the numbers going to work? And I model it out 6 months, 12 months, always at least 12 months. And a lot of times I'll do kind of some basic 2, 3, 4-year goals. And then I do best case scenario, I do worst case scenario, and then, what's most likely to happen type of thing. And, but the modeling always helps me to keep focused. And best practices is go back to it every week, every month, well, really at least every month and be like, okay, where am I?
Exactly.
But what I have found is if you think about it, if you look at the numbers after you think about what you want to do, it's going to help you reshape what you want to do and where you thought you were going to go. And if you really get into it, you'll find that after you look back at the year, or at least at the last quarter or the last, first half, you're going to find that you're very close to what you thought you were going to be. And like if you really think about it, you will get very close to what you were modeling. If you just put some bullshit numbers together, one thing that I always hear is, well, if I sell 1 million of these for $1 a piece, I'll make $1 million. I'm like, well, first of all, you wouldn't make $1 million because there is a cost of goods sold. I'm sure
there's insurance as well too.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also a way you're going to pay yourself. Oh yes, I hear that. I hear that shit all the time.
If I just sold 1 million of them for $1 a piece, I make $1 million. And it's like, well, there's a cost of goods sold, so you wouldn't have made $1 million. First of all, you would have sold $1 million. Second of all, selling 1 million of fucking something is insane. So let's get a little bit more sophisticated than that. But anyway, I appreciate you saying the whiteboards because writing it down, I heard some stats and I won't try to re-say them, but basically it's if you want success, first is understanding what your goals are. Number 2 is writing them down. Number 3 is speaking them. This is a huge one. People don't want to say it to anyone else. But if you speak them, you even have a better chance of getting them. So first, have the goals. Second, write them down. And you double it like each time. And then third, tell other people about it. Because once you tell other people about it, you've committed to it. And you're more likely to make it happen. And
it's interesting you talk about saying it out loud because what we tell people is this is one, if you're starting your process for some of your goals for your business, and you need money from those people, don't tell them about it yet till you know what you need.
Right.
But in terms of the goals you want to achieve, ultimately, yes.
Yeah, tell them your vision.
I tell people all the time, hey, I want $4.5 million in the bank by July 1st, 2024. They're like, what? I'm like, that's what I want in savings.
Right.
That's my goal.
Right.
And I know that's my ultimate goal where I will pivot and invest in the proper opportunities to make that and achieve that goal.
Right.
That financial goal. And it's interesting you also say about speaking out loud is that I think the one thing you have to add to that is it helps build your confidence. When people will, I hate to say this, friends and family, they know you're good and you're bad.
Right.
And they might joke around on your ideas, but you need to defend your goals.
Right.
When people say, and I'll never forget, I'm the youngest of 4,
right.
and there's a 13 and a half year difference between me and the oldest.
Right.
So she's more like an aunt, really.
Right.
and I'll never forget when she's like 4.5 million. Oh, that's a bullshit goal. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, it's gonna happen. She's like, well, I'm like, no. It's going to happen.
Right.
And she's like, you don't get mean about it. I'm like, you don't have to shut down my idea or my goal. If anything, you say, I wish you the best of luck. And I go, that's really the proper term. Right. So when you're saying out loud, as an entrepreneur or a young business owner, make sure you defend your goals. Like, hey, it's going to happen. Yeah. And I use a professional athlete analogy too. People like you talk to an 18, 19-year-old kid in college. And as a physical therapist, I mean, I took care of Olympic athletes. I took care of professional athletes. I took care of Division I athletes trying to go pro.
Yep.
And you even hint to them, hey, well, what if you don't get into the league? No, I'm getting into the league.
Right.
But what it, like, and I always ask, like, what if they're like, no, yeah, I have my backup plan, but I don't let that backup plan get into my thought right now. It's going to happen. And what's funny, their coaches, you're saying that would say, yes, say it out loud, say it with conviction, with conviction.
Conviction, yeah, for sure. No, and another thing is you're going to tell people. So when I did this cross marketing, when I did this company, I left a company that was closing down, and only a few of us got offered a transfer to Stamford, Connecticut. And on my last day, I went around. So first I got offered the transfer, and then I turned it down about 2 months before I was about to go, or when I was supposed to go to Stamford. On my last day, I handed out my business card, and to make the long story short, it was a few hundred person company, or at least in that area, it was several thousand. It was a national global company, but in that area, that few hundred people were now down to about 10 people. That was all left in this like 200,000 square foot office, and went around to those 10 people, and just be ready for people to laugh at you too.
Yep.
I had people laugh in my face. Now they saw all the successes I had with them at this company, and I was one of the few that was offered a transfer to Connecticut. I didn't get a layoff or get laid off. I took a layoff to start this company, and I still got laughed at. And I think what you got to expect as an entrepreneur is for people expecting you to fail and be ready for you to fail, and you got to leave that all behind. I actually use it a little bit as a chip on my shoulder. But you gotta leave their opinions behind, because they never had the balls to do it, and they're never gonna do it. And they're giving you their head trash, and they're putting it on you. That's not you. You have the ability. Yep. If you take that, then you may never go for it.
And I'll take it that step further. What you said. So being the youngest of 4, no one in my family is an entrepreneur. No one in my family is a business owner. I'm the black sheep.
Right.
And my father's like, I wish you the best, but you're not going to make it.
Right.
And it wasn't until I turned 31 that my father's like, shit, like, you got all these physical therapy clinics, you got all these personal training centers, like, you won all these accolades. Yeah, I guess you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And like, it took my father, tough, stubborn man from Boston, being like,
no, listen. I mean, when I started the business for 3 years, my dad said, "Do you think you can still get your job back?" I said, "Of course I can still get my job back." I was hugely successful. He goes, "So go get your fucking job back," and he couldn't understand it. And now the tone has changed, where he's like, I always, I know I always told you, and he admits to it, which is actually, it's a very tough thing to do. He's like, listen, I always told you not to do it. He goes, but you did it, and I'm proud of you that you did it, I was just worried about you. So, some of the words are their own fear. It's other people's own fear. So to kind of transition though, speaking of fear, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, that are different nowadays.
Yes.
Than just a couple years ago.
You're talking about the green stuff?
Yes. Speaking of that jar, I mean, that's funny, because you show up with a jar, you're like, I'm going to have an interview with Nick, and he ain't going to care, and I don't care, because I have a marketing agency that focuses on it, right? But, New Jersey just finally passed it, right?
Yes.
So what's the next steps? Like, when do we see this stuff pop up? Is this like a year, 3 years away? When do you see this stuff start to go on?
So we're
and how do you get involved too?
So we're going to preface it like this. There's the business answer, then there's the personal answer.
Sure.
For everyone listening, I'm going to just answer straight personal. Okay? I don't want anyone to confuse between the business and personal answer. I'm going to give my straight personal opinions.
Yeah, it's opinions, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
100%. And you never know how it all is going to
Exactly.
And in your thought process.
In my thought process is that one of the reasons why also too I brought this is that people in New Jersey in this area, because they don't have access, get fascinated just looking at it, like, wow, oh my God, look at all the hairs on this, like, holy cow, like, what's this package inside of it? Well, that's actually helped to keep it moist so it doesn't go dry, so it goes on. Like, so for New Jersey, the best way of putting it is this, is that it did pass. Should have passed maybe a couple of years earlier, yes, but politics occurred. Yeah. I won't go into the back politics story. As one of the founding board members of the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association, as someone who sat on state boards in Maine, Nevada, Rhode Island, as someone who's been a panelist for over, I stopped counting at 60 over the last like 5 or 6 years at different conventions. New Jersey, the fact that it passed has now really opened up the floodgates. And I'm going to just first drop some general big knowledge, and then we'll bring it back to New Jersey.
Okay, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, that's good.
I had cannabis companies in 5 different states. All right? And I had a cannabis testing lab in Denver, Colorado, Portland, Oregon, Las Vegas.
Right.
But people are like, why are you staying in New Jersey? Well, I wanted to employ people in New Jersey. I want to give back to the community that helped me, who got my start. All right? Yep. But if you look at the New England, the surface area of New England is half the size of the entire West Coast. But it's twice the population.
Interesting.
So what do you think is going to happen? All right. In cannabis, Colorado's a guinea pig state. Right. So if you want to do anything in cannabis here in New Jersey, and you're going to use Colorado as an example, don't. Because it's a guinea pig state. If you want to do anything in cannabis here in New Jersey, you can use California as an example. California is its own country in cannabis. We call it the true democracy of cannabis. All right. Okay. You need a license for everything and anything out there. Okay. So when you're going to compare and contrast, look at other states other than Colorado and also California. Now, I mentioned Maine before. I do a lot of work in Maine. People say, why you always do cannabis work in Maine? Well, Maine has had medical cannabis since 1999. Wow. California's had it since 1996.
Wow. Now, I didn't realize that it's been that long.
Yeah. And now let's take another step further. In the 2016 election, Maine passed legalization. Yay! Right. But they just started to do adult recreational as of October of 2020. It took them almost 4 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and remember, Maine's 5 times the surface area of New Jersey, but only 1.7 million people. Right. We're the most densely populated state.
Right. So in theory, it should be easier to do it in Maine because
exactly.
Because you can control it more. Right.
I'm giving that first because people in New Jersey are now starting to get on the bandwagon, which there's nothing wrong with that, but the big players have been eyeing up New Jersey for years.
Sure.
Okay, and I like to, and I've been quoted in USA Today and also by MSNBC because I call cannabis modern day penicillin.
Right.
I tell you, it's modern day penicillin. Now let's look at this and let's call this penicillin for a second, right? This is penicillin. Now, if there's only about 10 or 12 places in the entire state of New Jersey that can sell penicillin, and now they're going to open it up. Do you think those 10 or 12 places are going to help encourage other places to open up and sell penicillin? No, they're not. Because there's now we've got to talk about the business side. They spend a lot of money on lobbyists. They spend a lot of money actually to open up their stores, to start selling product. Right. So that's going to help slow the rollout here in New Jersey. For sure. Okay. The other
thing New Jersey is known for being very controlling of.
Exactly. And we're in the pharmaceutical capital of the world. Right. So now let's take it another step further here in New Jersey. The next round of licenses, in my opinion, are spoken for. They're not officially spoken for, but the people who've been lobbying and getting their ducks in a row, they're all ready to get it, okay? If you were to look at a pattern of other legalized states, usually within 2 to 3 years, you see more licenses being available. You see other companies running short on capital. We can go in. Why am I going to spend $2 million to open up something from scratch if I can go spend $1 million to get 40% of your company? All right? Like, let's not talk about the business side of things, all right? So the other thing in New Jersey is that we're offering what's called micro licenses, which means it's like a one-person operation. Okay. Like a mini dispenser or like a mini grow. But they don't have the rules and regulations for it yet. Yeah. So how do you know what's going to happen? Right. We have our social equality programs, which, to be very frank, is a whole other hot mess altogether. Yeah, I've seen some of those. I'm not going to even touch that road right now.
Not worth it.
But we still need the rules and regs to come into place. Yeah. So this is what I tell people about New Jersey. A few things. One is if you want to do something in New Jersey, no matter what, I applaud you. God bless you. Yeah. Just give it time. Be patient. it's going to be at least another year to 18 months. If people ask me all the time, Dr. David, when's the first time you think the first legalized joint will be sold for adult use? I tell them about 2 years probably.
Right.
We're also arguing about how much to tax it. And I joke around, look at other states, which their tax rate's much, much higher than what New Jersey is proposing. So I'm like, literally, it's a tax. Like,
so you're over under though. I just heard that was 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
2 years. Like I will be surprised if this happens prior to 2023.
Yeah. So January of 2022, we're not going to see a dispensary in Morristown or
for legalization. No,
for legalization
for adult use,
recreational.
Yeah, recreational. Yes, sorry. Yeah, for adult use recreational, I don't see it happening. Yeah. If it does, I hope I'm wrong. Right. But I just don't see it happening.
I could only imagine now, like that we're talking about, because the next question was federally, but that's a whole nother.
Well, so here's the one thing about about everyone listening to this, and if you have money and you want to invest in stuff. Yeah. The time is to invest now, because your return on investment is going to be much higher now than it will be 2 years down the road.
Right.
So it's here to stay. Plus, now you have over 33 states that have some form of cannabis laws allowed. It's over half the country. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
We kind of have our valuable belt. We got to worry about Texas. But now let's take another step further here in New Jersey, because you asked about New Jersey. What people don't realize are all the ancillary services. When I talk about success stories in the cannabis scene, I talk about cross marketing actually a lot. And you know that because you see me talk about you. Yep. Is that you want to do something in this industry as an ancillary service, non-plant touching.
Right.
All right?
Yep, 100%.
And you did all the proper steps. Hey, you picked my brain, you picked out some other people's brains, 100%. And you really were committed to it for a solid year just to get as much information. Yep. And you didn't give up on that. Yep. You started a subsidiary company.
Yep. Urban Creative,
yep. To do website design for cannabis companies, which is needed so much in this industry, and for CBD companies, needs so much in the industry. Yep. But the best part is you're also giving the client peace of mind that, hey, I'm not some bullshit, hey, I'm just doing this because I want to be involved in the industry. No, I have a parent company that works on huge Fortune 100, 200 companies where we actually know what we're doing and we want to help the industry. Now, and I cannot stress this enough, and I've texted you about some of your employees, how great they are. Right, sure. You are a spitting image to any entrepreneur in cannabis that wants to do something in this industry. You are a role model, Nick. You do not give yourself enough credit. I literally, people ask me all the time when I do my public speaking, one of the best success stories in this industry, and I tell them about Urban Creative. Yeah. And I tell them about cross marketing. Yeah. And people literally say to me like, what, really? I go, you don't understand. They did it the right way. They did their recon work. They figured out what they could offer other people. Yeah. Let's take another step.
We've done all the research on how you do it on Facebook.
Yep.
How you do it on Instagram. All the social media channels. Google has the same, or not the same, but different ethics and rules around how you can advertise and how you can market and how you can get search engine rankings. And they control YouTube. Same thing. So all these codes. And then all of, even the legal involved with it, how you can write about it, how you can talk about it. It is deep. It is really deep. But you can make money off of it. It's also legal.
Yeah.
And we also believe that it's a safe, product that people could consume at the right age.
Exactly. And then when we talk about why legalization is so huge in New Jersey, is that New Jersey is one of the few states in America has 5 major metropolises in less than 5 hours. We have Boston, right. We have New York City, we have Philly, we have Baltimore, and Washington, D.C.
Right. Interesting.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And that's why this area is so important.
Right.
And literally, let's take that to the next level. But now we talk about legalization in New Jersey and getting involved in this sector, okay?
Yep.
Let me ask you this random question. Have you ever used what's it called? A headhunter or
Yeah, of course. Yeah. A recruiter.
A recruiter.
Yeah.
How many recruiting companies do you think there are in America in total? For shits and giggles.
Hundreds of thousands. At least 100,000, if not hundreds of thousands.
So let's just say 100,000.
Right.
As of 3 years ago, how many headhunter companies do you think there were for cannabis in America?
I don't even know.
Less than 15.
Oh, yeah.
People ask me all the time, 2 years ago, if I had extra money, what I do? I'm like, I would open a headhunter company for cannabis.
Right.
Because you know what? It's needed. Now let's take another step further, okay? This is a vaporizer pen.
Right.
All right? People forget someone has to make the plastic top.
Right.
Someone has to make the plastic or glass tube.
100%.
Someone also has to make the machinery, which people forget. In central New Jersey, one of the largest companies that makes the machines for testing is actually out of central New Jersey.
Yeah. And if you think about it, people can't see it right now, but the lights on us, You need lights on the plants.
Exactly.
You need the opportunity to grow them, because this isn't grown outside for the most part. This is all grown inside because it's a controlled environment, or for a lot of the part, it's grown inside.
So let's take another step further about New Jersey. This battery, you have to make sure when it heats up properly, it's not producing any bad chemicals in here. Well, one of the people who's the leaders in America for actually producing the batteries and actually do make committees is based out of Manhattan. And I'm going to circle back to New Jersey again. People in New Jersey want to get involved. I told you about how 1 out of every 3 people actually decides to become an investor versus opening up a company.
Right.
Someone in New Jersey who I met at different Cannabis conferences on the East Coast from Central New Jersey really, really wanted to do something in manufacturing.
Okay.
Great manufacturing background.
Yep.
When we started going over the numbers, he's went, oh my God. Like what? Like what am I going to do?
Right.
I introduced him to this company. All right. He actually decided, instead of spending X amount of dollars, he took 1/10 of that. And,
what's the name of it?
So the company that actually helps design the batteries is called the Blink Group.
Okay.
Out of Manhattan.
Yep.
And they also sit on the Vaporizer Committee for America and also in Europe.
Yep.
Because you want to make sure what's actually happening when you're ingesting.
For sure.
And even during the vape crisis, their business went up. COVID, their business actually almost doubled.
Right.
So this investor, or become an investor, was really a business guy. We talked, and we talked 3 or 4 times. He's like, Dr. David, I don't want to spend all this money, but I want to be involved in the industry. I go, well, why don't you become an investor first? Because when you become an investor, they open up the hood of the car.
Yeah.
Or the hood of the engine.
Yeah, what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now he's like, oh my God, this company, I've already doubled my investment in 1 year.
Nope.
Oh my God, this company's even doing more stuff.
And that's what we were talking about.
Exactly.
When you're trying to learn about this industry, it's pretty closed off. So if you want to get involved. And there's a lot of ways to get involved in the industry. And there's different networking groups, which you just talked about as well. But there's low-cost ways to get involved and really understand how it's all working.
Website design's needed. Accounts are needed. Yep. Lawyers are needed.
Distribution, security,
exactly.
Insurance. Yep.
People forget one of the top. There's a security group called Sapphire Risk Advisory Group out of Texas. Well, the CEO and co-founder is based out of South Jersey originally.
Right.
He comes to New Jersey all the time. And I joke around people, I'm like, you need a rate security plan? Great, go use this company in Texas because they'll actually go in front of the town board to prove to you that crime rate goes down and your property value actually goes up.
Right.
If you have a dispensary or a grow in your town.
Right.
People don't realize that stuff.
Yep.
So one of the biggest things I tell people when it comes to New Jersey and cannabis is that, it goes back to what you and I said before, what's your goal? What's your end game? Is your goal to really just to make money?
Right.
Or are you on a mission statement?
You have a passion project
exactly.
about cannabis.
Exactly.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, Dr. David, I appreciate all the gifts. What was the name of this one, by the way?
That's Growing Balance 207.
Excellent. And I appreciate you coming on and spewing all your knowledge.
Oh, definitely.
Unreal what you talked about today. Really cool. And I hope to, talk about it more soon. I know we will because, we're next door neighbors.
Definitely. And seriously, kudos to you. Thank you for having me on. Yeah. And for everyone listening, for myself, I'm not trying to get emotional here. So Nick has seen my good side of business, my bad side of business. He's seen me succeed. He's seen me fail. To have someone like you appreciate to have someone like you appreciate and to understand what what it is to be an entrepreneur and to take a risk and take a chance in industry and to just fight through it. There's a lot to go through, man. There's a lot to go through. It says a lot about you as a person, as a character, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur yourself. And when we talk about success stories, you are a spitting image of a success story, and you should give yourself more kudos. Your employees are blessed to have a leader like you, and you are a spitting example of what it is to stick to your guns, make something happen, pivot when you need to pivot during COVID-19, and to also start subsidiary companies too to help empower even more people. Because one of the most special things I tell people all the time is, who signs your paycheck? When you're signing someone's paycheck that's providing for their family and for their kids, that's a huge responsibility, and people don't realize as an owner who has employees how much responsibility it is. And so I give you an applause for what you're doing. And
appreciate
so kudos to you on everything you've done.
Appreciate that. Wasn't expecting it. I do appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And I honestly, I appreciated watching your journey. I mean, what an awesome thing. I mean, and that is the cool thing about, being an entrepreneur. You get to see a lot of ups, but we all experience our downs.
Yep.
And it's what happens after your downs and what happens after and downs is a weird word. Struggles, challenges is probably more positive. Whatever it is, it's what happens next. So
exactly.
We're working our way through it. Awesome.
Exactly, man.
Thank you.
Salud.
Salud, man.
Oh,
I'm out.
We
can do one more.
Yeah, do a little bit more then. So, and for everyone listening, hopefully they got a couple green nuggets of information and some
more than
beneficial
that,
for everyone.
man. Really awesome. Thank you for all the knowledge.
Definitely, man.
Appreciate it. So, all right. Hey, man. Appreciate it.
Definitely, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
That was good.
That was awesome.